It's been a while. Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies Live. Gonna share with you tonight my or our because Taylor, who also was in my video for the Spring Whiskey School, gonna share with you our trip to Islay. Taylor's not joining me tonight because I'm mostly going to do a comparison between my 2018 trip to Islay, the 2023 trip to Islay, give you a few tips, and share with you my uh, photos and videos of my trip to Islay or our trip to Islay. Anyhow, let's kick it off with a little bit of rock and roll. So, Tater Dom, thanks for tuning in. So, this is sort of the last hurrah weekend towards the end of summer. It's Labor Day weekend here in the United States. And typically, our summer is hedged by Memorial Day weekend at the beginning and then Labor Day at the end. It's a nice, warm, sunny day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I'm sure a lot of people are out enjoying the sunshine. I have a feeling this is going to go a little bit longer than usual. I haven't done a live stream since before I went to Scotland. We were in Scotland from July 1st through the 15th, so 2 weeks. Spent 5 days at Springbank Distillery, going through the Springbank Whiskey School. Aquavite Roy was there just this last week. If you caught his live stream, Sugar Kitty, thanks for tuning in. Matthew, thank you for tuning in, and Whiskey Straight Out, thanks for tuning in. I'm going a little earlier, so hopefully that'll be a little earlier for you out there in Ireland and Donner Pass Whiskey. So I'm going to pour myself something real quick. When you visit the distilleries, particularly in Scotland, they're real conscientious about people not drunk driving, and the laws are real strict. So if you're a driver, they will give you driver drams, basically little bottles, and then they'll put the amount that you would have gotten during the tasting in the bottle or something like that. Sometimes, particularly when we went to Bunnahabhain, they gave us all kinds of samples at the distillery, plus a box full. This is full of samples this size in here. There's probably, I don't know, like 6 of them in here. There's 6 of them in here. So I'm going to pour myself a little of something I brought back. This is a 1996 Bunnahabhain Oloroso cask, 53.3% alcohol by volume. So Taylor and I, we first met up. This is the first time we met in person. We met up at Heathrow Airport. Things were a little touch and go there. I wasn't sure if he was going to get on the plane, but he made it onto the plane. So I was really happy about that. We didn't sit together because it was pre-seating. So really, we kind of met up once we landed at Heathrow. We spent the night in Glasgow, stayed at a hotel, went to Bon Accord, talked about that in the video on Springbank Whiskey School. After the Springbank Whiskey School, we went over to Glen Scotia Distillery. We then went up, stayed up at what's the name of that castle hotel? It'll come to me in a minute. Stone Castle. Is it Stone Castle? I think it was Stonefield. Stonefield Castle. Next day, caught the ferry and went over to Islay. First thing I'm going to say, if you have not been to Scotland before, yeah, I'm assuming you're not living in Scotland. If you've not been to Scotland before and you want to make a trip and you're going in summertime, I highly, highly, highly recommend you start planning about at least 6 months out. Because of the COVID pandemic, there's been sort of a buildup of people who've been wanting to go to Scotland who haven't been able to go to Scotland. And consequently, now everybody's going to Scotland. I started booking hotels and planning my trip and planning the itinerary at least 6 months ahead of time. And hotels in Islay were already booked up. I wanted to stay in Bowmore, which is sort of the capital of Islay, right in the middle of Islay. Let me bring a map up here real quick. Here we go. So if you see there where Bowmore is located on the map, it's sort of smack dab in the middle. I wanted to stay there, but the hotels were all booked. I'm talking 6 months out. I suspect a lot of them have long-term bookings with the touring groups, and so you as an individual trying to get a group, trying to get a hotel, it's going to be a little challenging. We end up staying at Port Charlotte Hotel. If you look on the maps, let's see where Bruichladdich is. It's a little further west than Bruichladdich Distillery, so that's where we were actually staying. So if you're going to try to book a trip ahead of time, if you're just going to wing it and show up, you're nuts. You're nuts because you ain't gonna get in there. So plan 6 months ahead of time. Now, this was my third trip to Scotland. My first trip was in June 2018. I went in July 2019. Originally, my plan was to go to the Northwestern Highlands, like up near Raasay, Isle of Skye. But that was before we got the invitation to go to the Springbank Whiskey School. I've been on the waiting list for Springbank Whiskey School since 2018. Their waiting list is now over 7 years long. They're not even taking any reservations, and they've increased the quantity of classes that they're having per year to try to catch up with the backlog. And still, there's a 7-year waiting list. So I was really, really thankful we got in there. So since we were already going to be further south, in Campbelltown, if you don't know, in case you don't know where Campbelltown is, I'll bring it up on the map real quick. And I'm sure most of you guys already know all this stuff, but what the heck? If you look to the left where it says Arran, you see that long peninsula there. To the left where it says Arran, that's the Kintyre Peninsula, and on the southern end of that would be Campbelltown. So I figured since we're already south, why don't we just stay south rather than head north after going through Springbank Whiskey School and go and visit Islay? I've been wanting to revisit Islay anyway. And then secondly, Taylor hadn't been there. It was his first trip to Scotland. So, okay, we'll go hit Islay afterwards. So, and it turns out it worked out really well because in April 2024, the Council of Whiskey Masters is having their Master of Scotch exam at, Raasay Distillery. So if I had taken the trip up there, it would have been a repeat trip to go up there for the exam. So it worked out really, really well. Providentially, that, hey, I will be up there next year, April 2024. So right now, all my focus is on studying for that exam. I'm gonna take a sip real quick. I get like, it's just a hint of smoke. The sherry notes there, the fig, the dates, the raisins, some spice. And the thing is, I haven't tasted this yet. It might not even be peated. That might just be a sulfury note because it's very faint. I'm getting more of a maple syrup character and brown sugar character. And some fudge. Hold on, let's take a sip. Mm, 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 mm. Wow. It's not peated. So it's the Bunnahabhain 1996 Oloroso cask. The lady, and I'll get more into this later, who was our tour guide, was very, very generous in her pourings. I'll just say that. Nebulous, thanks for tuning in. All right. So I'll be up there. I've already booked everything, basically booked it, the vacation approved. I haven't booked my flights and all that stuff yet, but I'll be doing that shortly to head back to Scotland. So April 17th, I think 17th, 18th, and 19th, which is like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll be back in Scotland at Raasay Distillery taking an exam. I'll fly up there the Friday before that. Give me a few days to adjust to the jet lag. So all my focus is studying for that. I just finished a series of videos. I did 48 distilleries. The last one was Glen Elgin. in which I provided the entire history of the distillery and then reviewed a whiskey from that distillery. That was my video on Glen Elgin was the last of that series. Starting tomorrow, I'm starting a new series in which I will tell you who in this series who the founder was and who the current owner is, but then I'll cover their production and then review a whiskey. So it'll be more of a focus on their production than on history. I'll make a reference to where they're located, starting date, current owner, founder, current owner, and then focusing on the production, then review a whiskey. And that will start tomorrow. In addition to that, in this new series, every day, so the new video for the series will post on Sunday, and then Monday through Friday, there'll be a shorts quiz video posted every day. So basically, you can watch them vertical on your smartphone, and they're less than a minute. Basically, it'll be a question about the distillery I talked about on Sunday. So I'll be starting out that series with Ardbeg, which will kick off tomorrow. Then Monday through Friday, there will be quiz questions Monday through Friday in the form of shorts videos. And then next Saturday, I'll do a video on a live stream, which we'll talk about more about Ardbeg Distillery as part of my study. And then it'll kick off again. So basically, between now and the middle of February 2024, I'll be posting content 7 days a week. So one full video plus short quiz videos and then a live stream. So it's going to be busy. But I'm hoping all this is going to finish on this is really long. I'm hoping this is going to be advantageous for studying. And I hope you all enjoy it as well. Man, Bunnahabhain, I think has really become more and more my favorite distillery on Islay. And it was the last distillery we visited on Islay. All right, let's get into this. All right. So we stayed at Stonefield Castle, 7 a.m. The ferry took us from, begins with a K. Can't remember the name of the little port there. Anyway, and it took us around to Port Ellen. And our first distillery that we visited was Bowmore Distillery. So day one, which was July 8th, we went to Bowmore Distillery, and then we went to see the Kildalton Cross, and then we went to Ardbeg Distillery. Now, the reason why I wanted to stay in Bowmore because it's a central location, and it would have been better for our schedule. So because we had to be all the way over in Port Charlotte at the Port Charlotte Hotel, which was a very nice hotel. The restaurant there is nice, and they have a real nice bar there. And one night they had live music playing Scottish folk music there. So it's very, very nice. But to be way over in the corner of the island and constantly having to make the long commute, particularly go down to the Kildalton Trio, it made a lot more driving. We put on our vehicle, the rent-a-car, just under 1,000 miles. And that's taken the fact that the vehicle did not move for 5 days while we're at school. It just sat there. Which means in 9 days, we put almost 1,000 miles. I think it was like 962 miles, something like that. Just short of 1,000 miles. So we did a heck of a lot of driving. All right. So first stop, as you saw there, was hold on. Oops. Man. Was Bowmore Distillery. Now, Bowmore, I'm trying to be nice here. Oh, Kenneth Craig. Yes. Thank you. Yes, Kenneth Craig. Thank you, Ian. Kenneth Craig. Thank you. Yeah, I knew it began with a K, and I knew it was a long word, but I couldn't remember. I know if you're going from Glasgow either to Islay or Campbelltown, you go to Androssan. That one I remember. And it'll take, if you're going to Islay or Campbelltown, it'll go underneath the Isle of Arran, take you around. But yeah, Kenneth Craig, thank you very much. So again, in terms of booking, you want to book way in advance. Unfortunately, the Kenneth Craig reservations aren't as available as early as the hotels and the distilleries. So it's almost like a few weeks before you take your trip, you want to start booking, and they do fully book up. One of the challenges, and Taylor and I talked about this in our Springbank whiskey school video. One of the challenges of Islay is the infrastructure, including the ferries. In fact, while we were there was a ferry that had broken down or was overextended in terms of maintenance. And so the ferry that they brought in to replace that one didn't have the holding capacity of the previous ferry. And consequently, a lot of people were stuck and weren't able to get back. So they have some challenges. As y'all know, the whiskey industry is booming like crazy. Most, if not all, the distilleries on Islay are doubling, at least doubling. They don't have the storage capacity. They don't have the workforce. They don't have the roads. They don't have the hotels. They don't have housing for the people who aren't tourists, who are actually living there and working there. They're short on that. They need hospitals and so on and so forth. It just goes on and on and on. If you build businesses, it's not just a business, and everything else has to be built up along with it. So that's a challenge they're currently facing. Now, currently, when we were there is a new distillery being built, and we drove by it, and there are 2 more distilleries that are in plan, and Port Ellen is being brought back to life. All right. So Bowmore, I have the core range of Bowmore Distillery. They are the 12 and the 15 are at 40% alcohol by volume, and the 18-year-old is at 43% alcohol by volume. And they're all basically sherry casks. What I like about Bowmore, even in those whiskeys, is it's a moderate peat. You know, Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Lafroig, big peaty whiskeys. If the Port Charlotte and the Octomore from Bruichladdich are big and peaty. Bunnahabhain has a few really big peaty whiskeys. Kilchoman, really peated whiskeys. Bowmore is much more moderate. It's about the intensity of the peat is similar to Highland Park. And if you look at the ppms, compared to ppms, they're peating about the same ppms. I'm not saying it tastes like Highland Park because it doesn't, but it turns up a moderate peat. And if you look at all of the Islay distilleries, they need that moderate peat player, someone who's somewhat in the middle. Don't get me wrong, I like big peated whiskeys, and there are unpeated whiskeys. Bunnahabhain does a lot of unpeated whiskeys. The Bruichladdich, I have one over here, the classic Laddie. Anything that says Bruichladdich on it is unpeated from the distillery. But they need someone who's somewhat in the middle. The challenge is Bowmore is doing everything for more of the mass market, and they're don't have anything in the core range or immediately available to the whiskey fan, the real whiskey fan, those of us, so that there's something to offer there. However, that being said, even if you're not going to do a tour of the distillery, I highly, 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 highly recommend stopping at the distillery, go to the visitor center, and buy the distillery exclusives. I have 2 of them right here, and I'll show them to you here in just a second. But before I do, I'm going to show you a video of our tour around, just photos that I put together, a little video of our walk around Bowmore Distillery. Now, originally, I wasn't going to share all these photos and video. I'd already been to Islay. I already did a whole series in which I shared photography and videos, which I talked about my 2018 trip. But a number of people were said, "Hey, are you going to share? Are you going to share? Are you going to share?" So I figured, okay, I'll do it in one live stream, and I'll share all my videos in one live stream. So it's going to be a long night. But let me take another sip here, and here is my short little video on Bowmore Distillery. So Bowmore has a malting floor. There's only like 6 distilleries in Scotland that still have malting floors. There's only one that their malting floor provides 100% of their malt needs, and that, of course, is Springbank. I think the level amount for, if I'm going by memory, it'll be in my notes on my upcoming video on Bowmore. I think it's around 30%, right, somewhere around 30% of their needs. Um, so it's worth visiting. Now, you're not going to see the production at the distillery the way you would at Springbank if you went through the whiskey school, but I think it's worth doing a tour and seeing it. Now, if you're not, even if you're not going to do a tour, what you want to do is go into the visitor center and pick up special bottles. Now, Fish Ale Festival of the Island is in May every year, and they all have special bottles. This is the 2000. This is an 18-year-old Bowmore Fish Ale edition, and this is bottled at 52.8% alcohol by volume. I'm going by memory. I think I paid around 157 in terms of pounds. This is an absolutely superb, I mean, just an awesome, awesome, awesome whiskey. I'll be doing a full video on Bowmore Distillery in my upcoming series, and I'll do a full review of this one. And I know people, they can't get it. This will show up on the secondary market, and you're going to pay more than twice that. I have, and I reviewed an Aston Martin version of Bowmore, the 21-year-old Aston Martin. I already reviewed that one. That was $300. I got it from a friend who owns a shop, so I was able to get it, at $300. It quickly is probably like over $1,000 now. This 18-year-old, I like, although that whiskey is fantastic, this 18-year-old I like more than that 21-year-old Aston Martin. But Aston Martin version, because associated with Aston Martin, and it's it's got the name on all that kind of crud, and they had those at the distillery as well. Those go for a lot more, and for the flippers and all that nonsense. Now, another bottle they have there. So if you're not there when they have a Fish Ale edition available. So again, Fish Ale is in May, but they produce enough and have enough bottlings. So going into June and July, they still had some, and they had plenty of them. So pick one up. Another thing they have is the hand-filled casks, and I didn't fill this, but they had them available. This is a 56.7% alcohol by volume. It's a 700 milliliter, and this is the hand fill. Now, we didn't take this at the distillery, but one of our fellow students, Peter, thank you, Peter, if you happen to be watching this, bought a bottle of this because he just came from Islay over to the whiskey school, and he brought one and shared it with us, and it was fantastic. Now, I like the 18-year-old Fish Ale edition more than I like that one, but still an absolutely fantastic whiskey. So, Bowmore, I wish they put something on the market, and I probably say this every time I mention Bowmore, that was something more for us. That was for us. Let's get at least 46% ABV non-chill filtered. Let's at least go there. So if you want to know what Bowmore is really capable of, again, these are just awesome whiskeys. Or go to independent bottler, right? And I've had some great Bowmores from independent bottlers. You can check those out as well. All right. So we went from Bowmore down to the Kildalton Cross. The Kildalton Cross, I'm going to bring a map up here of Islay Distillery. If you see where Ardbeg is there, it's past Ardbeg. So from Bowmore, you drive south, and you'll pass Lafroig, then Lagavulin, and then Ardbeg. The road heads northeast up the coast there, and then just past Ardbeg, about 10-minute drive further east from Ardbeg, is the old Kildalton Chapel and a Celtic cross that is, I think, over 1,300 years old. So let me show you a little video of that. I think it's, even if you're not religious or whatever, I think just for historical purposes, The chapel itself, if I recall correctly, goes back to like the 6th century. Now, from a historical standpoint, 6th century, there was no Eastern Church, there was no Western Church. There was no Roman Catholicism, there's no Eastern Orthodoxy. There's just one Christian church. The split between the East and the West happened in 1054. So if you're going back before the 11th century, the church, in a sense, was still unified. All right, here is my short little video. It's very short on the Kildalton Cross. So you can buy from Ardbeg a Kildalton release. Comes in this fancy box. I didn't buy this from this last trip. I bought this in the 2018 trip. Okay, so this is Ardbeg Kildalton. This is probably one of the most prized positions. It has been opened. I have tasted it. So all the money from this, the proceeds from this, go for help preserve the historic site. So I bought this in 2018. I'm gonna put this off to the side. And of course, you can pick them up from flippers and all that for twice as much as what you would get for at the distillery. So we went from our first day, we went to Bowmore, went down the Kildalton Cross. Then we went to Ardbeg. One of the things I planned the trip is Ardbeg Distillery, Kilchoman, and now Ardnahoe have a cafe. So if you're looking for a place to eat, now obviously there's restaurants in Bowmore. We had dinner one night in Bowmore. I tried to plan it so that around lunchtime or so, we could hit the cafe either at, excuse me, I'm belching here, either at Kilchoman, Ardnahoe, or at Ardbeg. So in terms of scheduling, I highly recommend trying, if you're looking for a place to eat, to try to schedule something there. Now, when we were there, I mean, they're still somewhat recovering from the pandemic, the Fauci disease. So the cafe wasn't in. Oh, actually, the day we were there, I guess the cafe closes one day out of the week, and the one day we were there, that was closed. But they had like a food coach thing parked there, and so we were able to get sandwiches, which was fine. I mean, they weren't the best in the world, but that was fine. That was fine. Alrighty. Then we went from there. We went over to Ardbeg Distillery. Let me show you the video of Ardbeg Distillery, and then I'll talk about it. Hey, Dustin, how you doing, man? So, as I said before, I try to plan everything out 6 months advance. But it seems like in every trip, somewhere along the way, in all the planning and everything else, I have some sort of brain fart. In my 2019 trip, so I have a whole chart where distilleries I'm visiting, what the tour times are, hotels I'm staying at, yada yada, and so on and so forth. When in my 2019 trip, when I went to visit Glenmorangie and then Val Blair, and if you follow the map up there, you're heading further north. Um, the mistake I made was I forgot I wasn't still staying at the hotel that I was staying at back in Speyside because I had moved out of Speyside, was heading up further Northern Highlands. So stupid me, I hadn't booked a hotel room. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, I just prayed literally and drove around. And I took this sort of weird country road off to the side and I'm just winding down. I go into the town of Dornoch, Dornoch, and they have a little small distillery there. And I see the Dornoch Castle that's been converted into a hotel. What the heck? Let's see if they got an opening. Pull in, park. I go down to the bar, which is, I guess, where they also take hotel reservations. Sure enough, they had a room. So I ended up staying. It was really, 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 really cool. The food was good. The food was fantastic. Um, that's not something you say a lot in Scotland. The food was fantastic. They had good wine lists, great bar down below. So I stayed at the Dornoch Hotel. Well, in this trip, I had on my itinerary to go to Ardbeg Distillery. I even had the time slot. Now, what I do is, as I'm planning things, because you have to put tentatively where you're going to go, but you have to wait until the distilleries are taking reservations. The distillery schedules change throughout the year, right? They're going to change the schedule for the spring and summertime because they're getting more people in than they would in the middle of winter. So they're how many people they have working, they have temporary help, and so on and so forth. Well, stupid me, I had it on my list, but I hadn't gone ahead and made the actual booking. I had booked everything else. I had all the reservations for everything else, for all the other distilleries except for Ardbeg. So Taylor and I, we go in there, and yeah, I have a 2 o'clock reservation, and I have a printout of my itinerary. And so, what's your name? Da, 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 da. And it turns out, oops, oops, they didn't actually have a booking. And I had it written for I think 2:30. They didn't even have a 2:30 tour. So the lady behind the counter, she says, "What's your name?" I'll be right back. She goes in and she gets a gentleman, and now I'm forgetting his name. I sent him an email. Thank you, email. He comes out and he recognizes me. He goes, "You're on YouTube. Erik Wait, you're on YouTube. I recognize. I've seen your videos." He then gives us a private tour, Taylor and I, a private tour of Ardbeg Distillery. And what was awesome is, first of all, he just saved our butts. He says, "This is how we do it on Islay, is being hospitable." No, he saved our butts in that instead of our schedules not being screwed up, but also because he recognized, okay, Erik, he's a big fan and he's a student in whiskey studies and all that. He can do more than just your typical tour, um, and go more in depth and we can ask more questions. So we actually had not just a private tour, Taylor and I, but one that was more engaging and more beyond what you give your typical tourist. So it was absolutely fantastic. I was just really, 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 really grateful that he did this. And I was a little surprised that he recognized me. But it turns out, um, out of the 9 distilleries on Islay, I was recognized at 5 of them. So I'm whiskey tuber famous, I guess. Anyway, so I had such a strong sense of gratitude. I can't leave there empty-handed. Now, originally, I'm gonna take another sip. For those who are tuning in late, this is a Bunnahabhain 1996 Oloroso cask, 53.3% alcohol by volume. Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Oh. So as you saw there, they got a lot of souvenirs and all that kind of stuff there in the visitor center. So I bought a few. First, they have Planet Ardbeg comic book. They have a Planet Ardbeg comic book, and this is some it's a Japanese art. What do you call it? Not anime. Is it anime? Yeah, anime. So Japanese style anime. Pretty cool. And they have other editions. I also picked up a couple mini posters, which I then whoa, I almost dropped this. Had framed. So I eventually I'll find a spot. This is the NO. So if you want to decorate your house with Ardbeg stuff, that's a place to do it. And then a 10-year-old, the 10-year-old as well. So originally, my previous trips to Scotland, one year I brought home, I think it was like 24 bottles. I shipped home like 10 of them, and then maybe 14 I brought home in my luggage. Well, I thought, well, I've already been to Islay. I'm focusing on preparing for exams. Most of the whiskeys I'm buying are going to be core range, and they're because that's what's going to be potentially on exams. I've got plenty of. I mean, look at all these. I've got plenty of Islay whiskeys. I really wasn't planning on buying more bottles from Islay. Well, I ended up bringing home 17 bottles total from the total trip from Scotland. Couldn't help it. Yeah, my luggage was extra heavy, but it all made it home. So I thought, I have such a sense of gratitude. I can't leave Ardbeg empty-handed. I gotta buy something. So I'll buy something there that is maybe hard to find, whatever. So I bought a bottle of the Ardbeg Heavy Vapors. My review and video of Ardbeg will be posted tomorrow. So I'm kicking off my new series tomorrow, and then Monday through Friday, there will be Ardbeg quiz questions in form of short videos. And the next Saturday, we'll be talking about Islay Distillery and more quizzes and stuff like that. So my review of this, I'm not going to make any comments on it. My review of this will be in my video tomorrow. I had to bring back something from Ardbeg. They now have, there's a new release coming out. The Ardbeg 13-year-old is coming out, and they're supposed to be reviving the Ardbeg 17-year-old. And I'm trying to think what else is supposed to be coming out from Ardbeg. Anyway, so I'm still a fan of Ardbeg. I'm a fan of Ardbeg. I like the core range. Ardbeg 10 is still a favorite of mine. But some of these unique committee releases for the last few years have not been a big fan. All righty. So on to the next one, the next day. So the first day we went to Bowmore, Kildalton Cross, and Ardbeg Distillery. So in my first trip to Islay, I was with a tour group. We met up in Edinburgh, got on a nice big bus, nice big windows, great visibility. And there were advantages of that. The advantage of that is, one, you can relax and chill. The roads in Scotland are narrow, and it's very nerve-wracking. It was very stressful to drive from Glasgow up and over and around down to Kildalton. Down the Kintyre Peninsula to get down to Campbelltown. The roads are narrow. There are a lot of blind curves, and when a truck comes along, and you just don't have. There's no shoulder or nothing. So when you go to with one of these tour buses, you can relax because the tour buses are tall. You have great visibility because you're not having to stare at the road necessarily. You can look around. And I sat in the front of the bus because I can get a little car sick. And the tour bus driver that we had was really enthusiastic about whiskey and really knowledgeable. And he pointed out a lot of historical sites, and we made some stops along the way. So there's those advantages. And we got to stay at a sort of like a little cottages at the Bowmore House. So there's those advantages. And I don't think they're overly expensive. But you're sort of with a little herd, and yet you're going from here to here to there to there. You have a little bit of free time, in terms of like going out for dinner or whatever. But there's no flexibility in it. I really, really, really liked driving. More flexibility. We could, Taylor and I don't have any videos of it. Taylor wanted to visit um, a textile shop where they made kilts for Braveheart and a number of different TV shows. It's a really old a mill there. This old man and his son, which was cool. Not too far from Beaumont, so you can do things on your own pace. I decided this, but with that, it was 3 days on Isla. This trip a little slower, 4 days. We spent 4 days on Isla, so I could take a little bit more of a casual pace. So we weren't bam, 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 bam hitting distilleries. We could take a pace. And on the first trip, we didn't visit Beaumont Distillery with the tour group. I had just walked around. We also didn't do a tour of Kalila. We just went to the tasting room. This trip around got to do an actual tour of Kalila. So slower pace. So then more flexibility, slower pace, a little bit more casual. However, if you're going to drive on Isla, I highly, highly, highly recommend you have an absolutely full tank before you get there. I had a hybrid vehicle, which got great gas mileage. There's not a lot of gas stations there. It could be there. There was one that was kind of weird. There was a gas station. You go to like a little shop, and it's like right on the main drag in Beaumont. So I was able to get gas before we left, but we were getting pretty low. So I highly recommend make sure you got a full tank and keep an eye on it because there aren't a lot of gas stations on Isla. All right. So I'm giving tips as well as sharing my tips. All right. And doing a comparison between my first and second trip. All right. So day number 2, we went to on Sunday. We went to Lafroig Distillery, the Dunaveg Castle, which is near Lagavulin Distillery, and then we went to Lagavulin Distillery. All right. So let me show you my video of Lafroig Distillery. So generally, there's sort of like 2 different types of so-called tours you could do at distilleries, and you figure out what you want to do. There are warehouse tours, which basically you're not doing a tour of the distillery. Basically, go to the warehouse and you oftentimes tasting things straight from the cask. You're going to probably get better tastings at these warehouse tours than if you do the normal tour. So since I've been to Isla before, and I wanted it to be a unique trip for me, some of the distilleries I chose to do a warehouse tasting rather than a tour since I'd already done a tour before. And so at Lafroig, I'd already did a tour of the Lafroig distillery, so I wasn't going to do another one. So we did a warehouse tasting. Now, when we did a tour of Ardbeg, it has a new still house. Most of your websites talking about Ardbeg Distillery still talk about that they have only 2 stills. They have 4 now. There, as you saw them in the photos. And in my video on Ardbeg Heavy Vapors, I go into the production and how they've changed. So at Lafroig, make sure I got this wrong. So at Lafroig, we did a warehouse tasting, and when we went into the visitor center, I didn't see anything there. I didn't see any fish ale editions or anything like that. So I didn't see anything there I necessarily wanted to buy. So we did a barrel tasting, and I chose one. There were 3 barrels, and you got to take how many? This is probably what 200, 250, 250 milliliters. So this is 250 milliliters, and you have to take one home. There's a label on it. You put a tag on it, and you put a tag on it. This one has Taylor's name on it, but he gave it to me. This is all Fino. So this is 100% Fino cask. Lefroy did really good English, Eric. Lefroy did a Carchus Fino cask, which I wasn't thrilled with. This one's better than that one, but still, I'm not real thrilled with. I don't think Fino casks do well with peat, but this is at 58% alcohol by volume, and it's a 6-year-old. Now I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to see what you guys think. Make it in the comments. Okay. Look at the color on that. Look at the color on that. What do you think the cask is? In fact, he did the guy who was doing our tour. He did this. He held it up and he asked us, "What do you think the cask is?" And actually, the camera's picking it up pretty good. It says it has sort of like a reddish tint to it. So put in the comments if you're paying attention. What do you think the cask is? Dustin says looks like a active red wine cask. Any other guesses? Bob Smith says port. So I may have shared this before on Scotch Down Under, but he says, but virgin oak isn't impossible. And that's what it is. Virgin oak. Now look at the color on that. Look at the color on that. Look at, yeah, it's not, yeah, it's not, there's not hints of purple. Look at the color. So when I saw this, I thought it was a red wine cask. So here's a funny thing. We're sitting in sort of a semicircle, and the host, there's 3 casks down in front of us, and Taylor was sitting a few seats over, and this guy from France was sitting next to me. So I'm sitting there, and immediately, just like Dustin, I'm thinking, oh, that looks like a red wine cask. This guy next to me says he thinks it's a virgin oak. And I thought, this guy's nuts. So I start talking to him. I asked him where he's from because I recognize the accent. He's from France, and he's from a place, it's near Normandy. So I said, oh, I've been to France. I went there with the Wine Scholar Guild. I went to Bordeaux, and I'm from Normandy, where Calvados is from, and so on and so forth. So as we're talking, he says, you remind me of this guy I watch on YouTube. His name's Erik. I look over, I go, I take out my card, one of my cards, I go, Erik Wait Whiskey Studies. And he goes, I'm him. And he goes, oh. So he was surprised to see me there. And I end up giving one of my challenge coins and all that. Anybody who runs into me, if they recognize me and they say hello, I try to have coins with me, and I would give them one of my challenge coins. So this is virgin oak. Now, basically, this is what happens when you treat a malt whiskey like a bourbon. That's the kind of color you get. So if you look at I've seen this color on bourbons, like Booker. I've seen some of the Bookers seen this color on it. Now, did I like the taste of it? Not really. Not really. So your virgin oaks out there, like Deanston virgin oak, they're spending time in ex-bourbon cask, maybe in a first fill bourbon cask, and then spend some time in virgin oak. You're not going to see 100% of it. So just for an academic purpose, I was glad to have this, just so I can say, I know what 100% virgin oak tastes like on a malt, and I don't particularly care for it. That's just not for that. It's better for bourbon. So I don't think they're bottling, I'm buying about a bottle like this. I think that they need to spend some time in some of the cask and then put it in virgin oak. The NO, Ardbeg NO, spends time in ex-bourbon, some virgin oak, and PX and PX. So some distilleries will use a little bit of time in virgin oak to give a little bit of oomph. But anyway, all right. So we did a warehouse tasting. We did also, and I'll get to it. Another warehouse tasting at Bruichladdich. Um, if if you go to Lagavulin, and if he's still there in MacArthur, if you're going to visit it before he retires, the guy's been there probably close to 50 years now. In MacArthur, the warehouse tasting, if he Pinky, if he hasn't retired and you're going to Islay, you want to do a Lagavulin warehouse tasting with Ian MacArthur. So if you're going there, before you book, ask, is Ian MacArthur still doing the warehouse tasting, or has he retired? Because he's got to be getting close. And then do it. It's a hoot. It's a lot of fun, and you're going to taste some absolutely spectacular whiskeys. But I did that in 2018, which is why I didn't do it this year. All right. At Lagavulin. All right. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. So the second day, let's say day 2, went to Lefroy, and then Duniveg Castle. So we went down to Duniveg Castle. Duniveg Castle is a ruin, and there's not a whole lot there to see. There's over 400 castles on Scotland. Some have been turned into museums, some have been turned into hotels, some have been restored and preserved. So like if you go to Glendronach Distillery, there's a Huntley Castle that is a ruin. It's really, really cool. Watch my video on the tour of Glendronach Distillery, and you'll see my photos of that. So this you can see from Lagavulin Distillery, but we didn't, when I went with the tour group, I wasn't able to go up to it. We only stepped onto the grass. So again, advantage of being on your own, and we weren't in a hurry. We had plenty of time. We parked over by Lagavulin Distillery, then walked up the road, and then took sort of a gravel path and went down to Duniveg Castle. And where it was looking pretty precarious. I was not going to climb on top of the thing. I'm not a mountain goat. I'm fairly certain I would fall off. Ah! So I didn't do it, but Taylor, the young lad, did. And I'm glad he didn't fall, because then that would have ruined our trip. All right. So here is the. All right, I'm going to pour myself a little bit more of the 1996 Bunnahabhain Oloroso cask. Just finish this puppy off. All righty. So another advantage, I cut myself off there when I played the video. Another advantage of being on your own is you can take your time, not in a hurry. And by only hitting 2 distilleries a day, you got a lot more breathing room, a lot more space in between, and to find other things to do. But some things that we went and did on Islay, I wouldn't have even known about, probably, if it wasn't for the tour. I probably wouldn't have known about the Kildalton ruins there, of the chapel there, and so forth. So again, pros and cons. You're not going to find anything at your local whiskey shops that's going to be really compare with what you can get when you actually go there. When I hear Scotsmen complain about unavailability of this, unavailability of that, I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. You have no idea. When we went to Edinburgh, we'd stop in at some shops and stuff. Yeah, they're expensive. They're store shops, but still, there's a lot of stuff available there that you're just not going to get here in the United States. Maybe you can have them shipped, but when you have things shipped, you're paying, if they're still doing the tariffs plus shipping, you almost double the cost of a bottle when you have something shipped over. And then talking auction houses, forget about it. Gosh. All right. Lagavulin. So we went going around there. Now, the weather. Preparing for weather. When I was there in Scotland in 2018, we had 1 day of rain and it was sunny the rest of the time. In fact, 2018, they were actually having concerns about not having enough water. Scotland does not prepare for times of water shortages. They just sort of live on the assumption that the water will always be coming in. Whereas California, we had 10-year plus drought. In this last year, we made up for it. We had more water to make up for the drought. But we have the infrastructure to store water, not just lakes and dams and everything else, but other means of storing water because we expect it. Scotland doesn't expect it. So when they get a dry year, they're hurting. And they have different sources of water, different types of water for the different parts. They don't use the same water for everything. Some they use for cooling, some they use for cleaning, the maintenance of and some they use perhaps for bottling or production water that they actually put into the mash tun and so forth. And they don't, one kind of water, they don't necessarily want to be in the other kind of waters, and which is not hard to figure out why. So in 2018, it was very, 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 very dry. Now, in terms of photography, it was fantastic, beautiful weather. People were saying, don't expect, it was my first trip to Scotland. People were saying, don't expect it to be like this if you come back. I said, well, I'm from California. I brought the weather with me. In fact, I did a live stream with Roy in 2018 on his channel, and it was like 92 degrees Fahrenheit. And Roy was having troubles with his computers and so forth due to the heat. Now we're used to, because they don't have air conditioning. Because if you're not going to get those extreme heats, you get 1 day of the hotels have air conditioning, but generally the population doesn't. This trip, we had a lot of rain when we were at Springbank, but we had more sunny days when we were on Islay. Another advantage of driving yourself, when we went to Ardbeg, there was a lot more cloud cover. So those photos of the outside of Ardbeg Distillery, I didn't take those when we visited Ardbeg Distillery. We went back there after visiting Lagavulin. I think we went back there because I wanted to take some photos for the video of the outside so I can get some nice sunshine shots. So as you saw there, it was mixed clouds with sunshine. So another advantage of driving yourself, riding with a tour group, is if you need to go do something, or if you want to stop and do a shop somewhere, or if you want to go, oh, yeah, let's go take a look at this, let's go take a look at that. Or if you want to go back to a distillery to buy something, you change your mind, I'm going to go back and buy that bottle I saw. You can go back, or if you need to go back and take photography or shoot video, because the day you were at that distillery that day, the sunshine wasn't out. So it's more independence and so forth. All right. John Kranz, thanks for tuning in, man. All right, let me show you our tour of Lagavulin Distillery. Now, in 2018, I didn't do a tour because I did the warehouse tasting with Ian MacArthur. So this time, I got to do a tour that I didn't do before. So if you saw those washbacks, you notice how dark they were, that dark, 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 dark color. Those, I think they're over 40 years old, and they're in the process, they're going to be replacing them. Um, so stainless steel, easier to clean. They have that advantage, and they last longer. For whatever reason, some decide to use the wooden one. Usually they're going to be Oregon pine or larch. And they have a lifespan of about 40 years. They get darker, darker, and darker, and darker. And some of the distilleries we went to that are still using the wood washbacks, they were replaced or in the process of replacing. Some were new, some were older. Didn't see anything at Lefroy. Hold on, Lagavulin. Hold on, getting my brain straight. Lagavulin. I didn't see any bottles at Lagavulin that I wanted to buy. I didn't see any official editions or anything like that. So I'm going to be doing a review for an upcoming series in which I'm focusing on production. The Lagavulin Distillers Edition, which is in PX cask. It's available here. Sells for, I think, around $125, $130, somewhere in there. I haven't picked it up yet, but there's a local shop that's got it. So I brought back bottles from Bowmore. Again, we'll get into Bunnahabhain, and I didn't bring back one from Lefroy, but I picked up the 16-year-old. Oi, 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 oi. No. Sorry, I'm losing track here. Yeah. And I didn't pick up one from Lefroy, but I'll be reviewing the 16-year-old. If you can get it, I highly recommend buying it. All right. So that was day number 2. Now we were there for 4 days, so we're halfway through. Day number 3, we went to Kilchoman Distillery and Bruichladdich Distillery. Now, obviously, Kilchoman, let me take it to the Islay map. So at this point, we've covered all the ones in the south. We've covered Bowmore, smack dab in the middle. Now we're going over to Kilchoman and Bruichladdich. So at this point, because we're staying at the Port Charlotte Hotel, which is down the road from Bruichladdich, we're now hitting the distilleries that are a lot closer to where we're actually staying, which is really convenient and not doing as much driving. I'm clicking buttons here. Looking for the Kilchoman video. There we go. Kilchoman. Got to get rid of that picture. Sorry about that. There we go. So, if you saw my video from my previous trip to Cohoman, or if you've been to Cohoman, Cohoman has a new still house, and they've doubled their production. They also have a new visitor center, new cafe. So it's what visiting Cohoman was almost like visiting a completely different distillery than I had visited before. I have the total core range of Kilhoman, reviewed them all. I like the Loch Gorham. They had some other special limited releases there. And also have a couple of the Impex releases. It comes out of an importer from out of San Francisco. I saw some other bottlings they had there, limited releases, but I could get them back here in the United States, so I didn't buy them there. I'll be reviewing this one. This is the Kilhoman Saturn's cask. So I didn't buy this at the distillery, but it was available at the distillery. So if it's not available where you're at and you're visiting the distillery, you can pick this up there. Not a lot of distilleries using Saturn's cask. Of course, Glenmorangie does their Nectar Dior out of, which I have a bottle here. I'll be reviewing that one of these days. So get something a little bit different and get something there. So if you see something at a distillery you like, it's very easy because of the excitement of being in a distillery to buy one. When I was at Glen Scotia, it was I can't remember what bottle it was. There was a particular bottling that I really, really liked. And it was actually, I got it on the Oswald Awards. I checked my phone and I could get one back home, so I didn't buy one there. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, so that was Kilhoman Distillery. We had lunch there, which was very nice. And then we went up to Bruichladdich Distillery. Da-da-da. Nope, that was day 2. Sorry. Bruichladdich Distillery. Come on, but got to keep pushing little buttons here. Yes, Fraser. It was the Victoriana. So as you saw there, we got to do barrel tastings, and we got to fill up our these little sample bottles, these driver drams. So even though I was driving, I wasn't telling people I was driving, because if you tell them you're driving, they won't let you do a tasting. So if they ask you, "Are you driving?" don't lie to them. Just don't say anything. No response. They're doing their duty. So I was tasting, but I was also driving, just let you know. All right. Didn't have any problems. All right. So these are those casks, and I'll enjoy these at some other time. I'm still enjoying this Bonavin. So advantages and disadvantages. So during the summertime, a lot of distilleries are doing their maintenance phase. The advantage of that is a lot of places you can't take photos while they're in operations because they don't want distilleries to explode. If you've been watching my series I just did 48 videos in which I include the entire history of distilleries. Did you notice one of the things I noticed is a lot of distilleries have had fires and explosions, some of them multiple times. So we're talking about something that's very volatile. You don't want to have a spark at a distillery any more than you would, say, at a refinery, right? You're going to make the thing freaking blow up. However, some distilleries during the quiet period, because they're not doing production, they'll let you take photos. So there's that sort of advantage. However, as you saw there in the photo there, looked like a UFO had crashed there at Bruichladdich. Originally, we were going to do a tour of Bruichladdich and then do a warehouse tasting, but uh, they were replacing a still, so it was disassembled. And so since they had all this construction stuff going on and maintenance going on, and they're shut down, I think for several weeks, we didn't get to do a tour, so we just did a warehouse tasting. All right, after Kilholman and Bruichladdich. Our final day, we went to Ardnahoe Distillery, Kalila Distillery, and Bunnahabhain Distillery. Excuse me. So Ardnahoe hasn't released anything yet. When I was there in 2018, when in the tour bus, when we went to Bunnahabhain, we're sort of driving up this hill, and Ardnahoe was down below, and you kind of look over and see it under construction. This time we get to do a tour of Ardnahoe, and they had a real nice cafe there. We had lunch there, but they didn't have any of their own whiskeys to sell, or even to taste. So we didn't get to, we did a tasting there, but it was some other drams they bought in there. But at least I get to do a look at the place, and I'm looking forward to when they have an actual release. So let me show you a quick video of Ardnahoe Distillery. And Roy got I think it was a special invitation, got to go to Ardnahoe Distillery a while back. The place is quite impressive and a really beautiful distillery. Alrighty. So at least you got to take a look at it. Hospitality was top notch. I don't think there is a friendlier place on earth than Islay. Never meet a grumpy person. There are people there, I would say, are concerned about the future of Islay, the locals, in terms of the rapid building expansion, and they have challenges of getting groceries. They have challenges of getting gasoline. There are people that Taylor and I talked to that work at the distilleries that are staying in their vehicles. They're staying in mobile motorhomes and that kind of thing. There is a shortage in housing. The new distillery, I can't remember the name of it. The new distillery is being built. One of the agreements they had in bringing this distillery is they had to build housing. I think they had to build like 20 homes or something like that because you can't just be focused on the business. You have to be and you have to think about the impact it's going to have um, in terms of the infrastructure on the rest of the distillery. So our next stop was at Kalila, and I had been to Kalila before. I mentioned before we had only gone to um, the tasting room. Kalila and Bunnahabhain, I think, in terms of looking out from the distillery, have the most spectacular views. You can see Isle of Jura there. Um, Diageo has been redoing their visitor centers at a number of their distilleries. We went to Glenkinchie was redone. Cardew's been redone. Um, the visitor center at Kalila has been redone. I'm trying to think of some of that. And they have a Johnny Walker Center in Edinburgh. So let me show you my video tour of Kalila, and then I'll talk to you about a couple bottles there. Again, Kalila, the tasting room, the bar, the view, the tour. The tour is good. Is absolutely spectacular. It is beautiful, 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 and got to pick up some whiskeys that are you're not going to get here, and were absolutely superb. But let me show you that, and then I'll talk about the whiskeys. All righty. So first, when we went to Kalila, the touring bus brought us down below, and so we were parked down below, and then you walked into what was then the visitor center, and you could walk out on the pier and take pictures and stuff. Now, where they have built the visitor center and the tasting room and all that is up sort of on the side of the hill, and you walk down this path from the parking lot is now up above, and you walk down to that, and then and there's a bridge that takes that over to the visitor center, and it's all done really, really, really well. And then, as you saw there in the video, where you actually do a tasting is at a table with a sort of a round bench-like table with a spectacular view looking out across the water with Jura out in the distance. They gave us. It was really, really, really good. I have to contact them. Actually, they gave us a cocktail made with the whiskey. It was very much a summertime drink with some peated character. I can't remember what it was. It might have been like an iced tea. No, in fact, I think it was an iced tea, if I recall. Maybe Taylor would remember. I think it was an iced tea with peated Scotch whiskey in it, and it was really, 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 really good. Really, really, really good. So when we stayed at the Stonefield Castle before we went over to Islay, and we went into the whiskey bar before we went into and had dinner. The whiskey bar didn't seem to be carrying quite the selection they did before. And we actually talked to the manager there about that. And I guess the whoever owns the hotel is limiting his funds and what he can spend and buy. Anyway, I got to taste this. The Kalila. Oh, hold on. The Kalila Mock or Mosh. This is not sold here in the United States. It's a non-age statement, 43% alcohol by volume. It is sold, I think this is part of the quarter range for the UK and Europe. This is not sold here in the United States. It's even 43%. I really, really, really like this whiskey. If you've had this, let me know. This is really, really, really good. So I thought, you know what? Even though it's a store buy, because it's not sold here in the United States, I got to get me one of those. Matt Zitrick and Will Pope, however you pronounce his last name, over Whiskey Crusaders, just not long ago. They did a video on this. I think it was a live stream, maybe. They did on this one, and they really liked it as well. So if you're looking for something that is probably a little more affordable and I think still impressive, I get more of the 12-year-old or anything else in terms of the regular quarter range you can typically get from Kalila here in the United States. I thought it was really, really good. But what I really liked and bought a bottle of was the Kalila 13-year-old Fish Hill edition. When we first stepped into the tasting room, they were, before you do your tour or anything like that, they give you little teeny weeny glasses. A little sample of this. This is bottled at 60.4% alcohol by volume, natural cask strength. There's 2,105 bottles, and its first fill, Pedro Jimenez, an Oloroso seasoned butts. So it's Oloroso Sherry and PX. When and where are you going to get a Kalila that's PX and Oloroso Sherry? And it's absolutely superb. Now, I haven't opened this one yet. I bet you I'll do a video and I'll review this one. But again, one of the reasons to go to Scotland is to get the things you can't normally get. And if you can go there, Fish Hill, I think it's got to be a madhouse. I don't think I'd ever go to Fish Hill. I'm not into crowds. I don't like being too busy. The fight over trying to get a place to stay and all that. But a lot of Fish Hill bottles are still available into June and into July. So as long as you get there shortly after, you can still get these bottles. This is absolutely fantastic. So we went to Ardnahoe, we went to Kalila, and then our last stop was at Bunnahabhain, the creme de la creme, the best tasting, the best view, the best tour. Well, we didn't do it. We did a warehouse tasting. Just amazing experience. I was really glad we started in the south, or we actually started in the middle of Bilmore and then went south and then went north because we saved the best for last, Bunnahabhain Distillery. I'm gonna be honest with you. I probably should not have driven to the hotel after visiting Bunnahabhain. We made it there safely. We got there fine. We didn't have any problems, but probably shouldn't have driven. I'd have taken a nap out in the parking lot or something. I don't know. But it was our final stop. They were very, very, very generous in terms of not only doing the cash tastings, but then we went to the visit center tasting room. Here, try this one, try this one, and try this one, and try this one, and try this one. It's like, holy cow, man. No, the biggest challenge about Bunnahabhain was what not to take home and what to take home because they're all fantastic. There's so many bottles available that distillery only releases. And it's like, oh my goodness. And of course, some of them were expensive. So much good stuff. I mean, the selection, the availability, the variety, the quality, it was there. It just blows everything away. And there's no gimmicky stuff. Yeah, I Ardbeg, I like the humor as long as the quality of the whiskeys are maintained, then all the humorous, funny stuff, I dig that. It doesn't bother me. But when you're trying to be more funny and catchy and gimmicky than you are focused on the quality of the whiskeys, and unfortunately, those two things tend to go hand in hand when you focus more on all the gimmicky crap, the quality of the whiskey, and I've seen this with wineries as well, they tend to suffer. Bunnahabhain, none of that. Bunnahabhain, they don't even do a lot of promotions, publicity, no hype, no nothing. Just really solid whiskeys, both peated and unpeated. Monya typically is what a lot of their special releases. Anyway, so I have all the core range. I have the Palo Cantado cask. I got Manzanilla cask. I got all kinds of Bunnahabhain. So this is what I picked up. This is a Monya, which means peated. Monya means buy me now in Gaelic. The Pedro Jimenez cask, 2004. This is bottle number 642 out of 1270, bottled at 51.8% alcohol by volume. I had a difficult time trying to figure out because I only had so much space in my luggage. And I wasn't even, I had too much clothes in my luggage. We were able to do laundry at the student house at Springbank. And if I'd been thinking about it, in my previous two trips, I was able to do laundry at a laundromat or at the hotel I was staying at. I would have brought half as much clothes, counting on doing laundry halfway through the trip. Next time I go, I only bring half as much clothes, so I have more room in my luggage because I would have brought home more Bunnahabhain. Oh, and then because we went to Glengoyne, I would have brought some other bottles as well. But my luggage was packed. In fact, I bought an extra small case to put my dirty laundry into because my luggage was so full. So I actually bought a little luggage thing in there when we were there. Absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. So we saved the best and going to Bunnahabhain. We'll be talking about this in an upcoming video when I talk about the profile of the distillery. And of course, get the typical complaints. Why are you doing a review that I can't get that? Yada, 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 yada. This is a study channel. It's also meant to inspire people to go to Islay. I'm trying to share with you, tell you about the good time I had over there, share some memories, but also inspire people that if you ever have the ability, but even if you can only do it once in your life. I mean, in next April, I'll be there for my fourth trip. I'm guessing as long as we're going to have another pandemic, I'll probably be back in Scotland every year until I can't do it anymore. And I want to make a trip to Ireland as well. Save your pennies, save your money. Figure it's about flights from California round trip, $2,000. Maybe another couple grand in hotels, gas, rental car, and all the rest of it. If you can stash $4,000 or $5,000, you have a real comfortable 2-week trip to Scotland. You could do it cheaper. You could do it a lot cheaper. That's about what I budget for. but you could do a lot cheaper than that. If you're over in Europe, Peter, he was from Switzerland, who was in our spring break whiskey school class. He can be there in like 2 hours. He said he'd been to Islay like 30 times or something like that, which is it's kind of crazy. But anyway, so if you're over in Europe and UK, if you're over in Ireland, you're just a stone's throw away. You can be there a lot easier. Mm, 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 mm. I'm really thankful to be able to go over there. It's a privilege. Um, it's a blessing. It's more than just consumption. It's history. It's culture. It's meeting people. Um, it's visiting a whole nother world. It's inspirational. I'll be honest with you. I can get burnt out on any. I tend to. I don't do anything halfway. I do everything, give everything 110%, and I can get burnt out on anything where I just don't feel like doing that anymore, whatever it is. And I was feeling a little burnout on the whiskey tour thing. I was feeling a little burnout from the studies, and I was like, God, do I really want to go for the Master of Scotch exam? I was feeling just tired, and I have other things that I want to do, and I start a new position at work and stuff like that. But going back to Scotland, it was a boost in being inspired. It's like falling in love again. If you're married or you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and you have a relationship, and the relationship can kind of get strained, hey, take some time off from work and everything, and I think, and just have a night out. Have it do take get a babysitter to watch the kids, get grandma to watch the kids, and take some time out with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, whatever, to spend some time alone and reignite your relationship. And it's that same thing with studying Scotland and the adventure and the journey of learning about Scotch whiskey and production. Is to go there and to come home. Yeah, I was physically tired. It took me 2 weeks to recover from my vacation. You had a good vacation when you need a vacation to recover from your vacation. So I needed time to recover, but I was also reinvigorated in my enthusiasm for my current studies. And I'm looking forward, really, really looking forward. I mean, it's not until next April, but it'll be here before you know it. To return to Scotland for the fourth time and to take the exams, but also to visit a whole nother region area of Scotland that I haven't been to. And along the way, you meet some really, really cool people. And so, anyway, so that's it for this live stream. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you ever have any questions or anything, if you're planning a trip, I've done this a lot. If you're planning a trip and you want some tips or anything like that, I would say since 2018, at least I would say about at least a dozen people have contacted me, and I've given people tips on how to plan a trip. I can post my itinerary that we had for this trip. No, we didn't stick to it tightly because you have to make allowances for changes and what. But I could post a copy of it in my Facebook group. You could get a general idea of how I plan a trip. So anyway, it is Labor Day weekend. Got Monday off from work. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their weekend. And next Saturday, we will be looking at Ardbeg Distillery again. Tomorrow is my video and review of the Ardbeg, what the hell they call it? Heavy Vapors. So you get my 2 cents on that one. All right. Until next time, Slange.